Hi guys, we are going to start constructing the basic form for your sculpture today. We're going to take it over a period of weeks, just as though you were in class. We would only have a 50-minute lesson each week, so I'm going to expect no more than that, an hour from you each week. So we're going to break this up into stages, and the first stage is making something called the armature. This is a wire center, a bit like a skeleton, that your paper and tape and everything's going to go around, okay? Okay, so these are some of the materials that you're probably going to need. I've got these which cut the wire, but scissors might work if your wire is thin, or you might be able to bend, or pliers. I don't have any pliers, but I'll put a picture up here for you to see what pliers look like. So you might have some of those around the house. These are good for cutting the wire and twisting. I've got masking tape. This is a bit better than just plastic tape, mainly because you can paint over it, and it's papery, so you can kind of squish it into shapes. I've got some scissors. I don't know if I'll need them. I've got two types of wire, because it's what I've got in the art room. Actually, I've got three. This is really thin from the garden centre, and I think it's going to be too thin unless I use lots of it, which I probably will. I've bunched them all up into a thicker wire. I've also got galvanised wire here, which is much thicker, but I can bend it, which is what I need to be able to do, and maybe twist it with the help of my pliers. And I've also got some pictures of Giacometti and Glabic and a picture of a skeleton, and we're going to use these to get our proportions right. Okay, just quickly, I just want to show you the comparison I was talking about between the proportions of the body. So the human form, the human skeleton, you can see that the head, the skull, is quite small in relation to the hips. It would fit between the hip joints, whereas on Giacometti, he's got very narrow hips. The head is about the same width. His legs are also very long and stick-like, unlike human form, which gets wider. But his proportions are kind of accurate in the length of the arms. Often students draw their arms and make their arms too short, but they're actually quite long, and they come down to halfway down our thighs, well below our groin. And the length of Giacometti's arms are doing the same thing. So we're going to try and keep the proportions of the arms to the body accurate, but his legs are much longer. So his legs here are the kind of head to below the groin. Here, then they're not as long. So his legs are elongated and stretched out. Plus it has a tiny head. So between the two, we're going to use these pictures, and Glabic is the same, much longer legs, tiny hips, long, narrow body, and actually proportioned arms, a bit like Giacometti. They still come low towards the thigh. Glabic's knees are very high, which is an interesting element here. They've got really long shin bones, and the thighs are quite short, a bit like animals, actually. Okay, so even though your pose that you're planning for your sculpture might be a bit more dynamic than just somebody standing face on, I'm thinking I might try something like this. We're going to use this as our structure first, and then bend the legs and arms to fit our pose. If we followed this one, we'd have disproportionate limbs, because her leg is actually probably coming outwards and bending back. But we don't see that, we just see a shorter leg. This is called foreshortening. So even though this leg is long, and we know this one is the same length, it looks much shorter. So we'd end up with a funny shaped sculpture. So we're going to use this first, and then bend the legs and arms into the position that we want. Okay, so I've cut a length of wire. It's about twice the length of my arm span. And it's really annoying because it keeps bouncing everywhere and poking me, so just be careful. And I've folded it in half so that my ends meet here, okay? So at the other end, it's folded over. That's my halfway point. And this is going to be This is going to form our head. I'm going to also try the same technique I'm showing you now with this wire, which is much thinner and might be more easy to control. So we're going to try this first. Okay, so first of all, we're going to deal with the head. This is the halfway curve where I've folded the wire in half. And I'm just going to try to bend the wire so that it's kind of my head shape. It's about head size. And you can work straight onto the picture, which is really handy. And I'm going to twist, might make it a bit bigger so that when I twist it, if I lose size, I don't make a small head. So that's just twisted. So that fits my head, more or less. Okay, so we've got the head shape there. Now we're going to follow the line of the shoulders, and we're spreading out our wire so it's going along the shoulder line. And at the point where the shoulders curve down to the arm, we're going to bend our wire along there. So I've actually brought his shoulders out a bit too far. Her shoulders. Let's go back there, and bending that wire down to follow the arm. And using the picture underneath is super helpful. It'll help you with proportions. So now our width of our shoulders are in proportion with the head, so it's human-like. And this is the galvanized steel metal, which is actually pretty good. And then I'm going to come down the length of the arm and bend it back again at the hand. So I'm bending again at the hand. I've actually gone a bit longer. I don't mind so much, as long as it's not too short. And I'm bending it back up to the shoulder. Same on the other side. Bend at the hand and bend that up to meet the shoulder. Okay, so you've got this kind of shape. So you should have something that looks a bit like that now. Okay, so now we need to deal with the spine. So we're going to bring these, we've bent it at the hands, we're going to come back up to the shoulder and bend back along the shoulder end. So I've bent it back again here at the shoulder, and it's coming now in the opposite direction. I've got too much wire here, so it's boinging everywhere, but you never know how much you're going to need. So, and then back up this side, and I'm going to bend it against that shoulder. Okay, if I just turn over my picture, you might be able to see the wire a bit better. So we've got the head, and we followed it to the shoulders, down the arms and back up again, and then we bent it at the shoulders to like come behind the back and come in front. So we've twisted them around. And now we're going to twist these two together. Where they cross over, we're going to try and twist those together. So they come down. We're going to bend it at the spine so it comes down into the middle. Because this wire has been stored in a circle, it wants to resume its circle shape, which is very annoying, so it boings in one direction. Okay, so we've now crossed them over here. Now at this point, if you've got wire that you can twist nice and easily and twist together at this point, you can do that. Mine's a bit tough, so I'm going to use some masking tape tags to hold it together. Okay, so I've just torn off strips, and I'm going to wrap it around the shoulder because that keeps wanting to separate, and I'm just going to wrap it round like that. The great thing about masking tape is that you can just rip it like paper, and it's easy. You don't need scissors for this stuff. And it's just holding it in place like that. So now we've got his long arms, his head and shoulders. Now we're going to work on the legs. Now, as we can see with Giacometti and Glabic, particularly Giacometti, his hip area is very different to human hip. We've got very large, wide bone structure, and we don't have that here. So we're not going to create width in the hips. I'm just going to twist them so that they hold still, and make the legs. And then when we add our paper covering, we can build up hip shapes if we want to. So remembering that our arms are longer than our hips, I'm going to start the legs from a bit further up, okay? So I'm going to, I think I might try and twist this, just for strength. Or you can, I guess, tape it. So I've just twisted that a little bit there. It gives us a bit more stiffness in that area. I'm going to try for one more twist. Okay, and again I'm just going to use a bit of tape just to hold this point together. So as we know, both Giacometti and Glabic here, Giacometti here, the legs are quite long, a little bit overly long, and in Glabic's case, hugely exaggerated. So you can go either way. You can really make them very long, much longer than the body. Glabic's from the hip to the ankle is twice his body length, so that would make our legs have to be about this long, something like that. But if you want them shorter, you can. I'm going to exaggerate mine because I've got actually wider shoulders. I thought if I have longer legs, it will make them look smaller, so I'm going to make mine quite long. So I'm coming down to where I want the leg to end, and I'm going to fold it at that point. I'll fold it back up. So that is now my leg shape and leg distance, much longer. And I'm going to twist it around the hip or any way that you can to secure it to the hip area so that it doesn't spring out somewhere. So I've just twisted it around a little bit there. And I'm going to do the same with the other piece of wire. And again, just twisting it around the hip so that it holds on a little bit. It gives us a nice bit of bulky joint there as well. If you've got any bits like this where it's twisting and separating, you can tape it in a minute. So that's probably all I'm going to need for the wire. So I can now trim off my extra wire, and I'm left with my long, tall person. I'm just using my snips. I'm going to go a bit longer so that I can put the extra up here and we won't cut ourselves on little pieces. I'm just going to bring those up, or maybe down the leg, it's up to you. But they're very sharp at the end, possibly, depending on the wire you're using, so just be careful. And I'm going to just tape that around. A lot of this is improvisation as well, so this isn't a step-by-step so much as now you must put tape around this bit. If you find you need to use tape, or your wire doesn't even need it, don't use it. If you found a different way to twist the hips, or a different way to construct the body, then you can use that. This is more of a, if you can't even think where to begin, follow this stage is probably, this step is probably good. So there is our basic structure of our figurine, our armature. So now I'm just going to get strips of tape and I'm just going to go down the leg to hold this together so it stays narrow. Looking at my armature now, I realise that my arms are still too short, so I'm actually just going to straighten out the arms and bend them, create their shoulders at a much narrower place. So it'll be a little bit more like Glabic's shoulders. Now my shoulders are a bit more narrow, which is in keeping with Giacometti and Glabic. They're a little bit longer in the arm area. He looks a bit better now. And there he is. He's so long, I have to travel up and down. And that's it. That's all I'm expecting you to do today. Construct the armature carefully and send me a photograph of your finished piece. Next week I will talk to you about adding layers of paper and tape and creating more of the human shape that Glavic and Giacometti's sculptures reflect. Okay, enjoy, have fun, and I'll see you soon.